My name's Cole Jensen, and for the past 15 years, I've worked in some of the deepest mines on Earth. I'm not a rookie. I've seen shafts collapse, lost friends to cave-ins, and once went 72 hours with nothing but a backup lamp and a quarter bottle of water after a tunnel wall buckled behind me. You don't last long in this line of work if you panic easy. You learn to shut out fear, to breathe slowly, to trust the creak of rock over the silence. I work for a mid-sized Canadian outfit called Prospecta Minerals, and our latest contract took us far from home, deep into the Peruvian Andes, just outside a tiny Quechua village called Palca. The company said there were signs of rare earth elements embedded in a mountain ridge that had only recently been surveyed via satellite imagery. Not gold or silver, mind you. We're talking high-yield deposits of yttrium, neodymium, and cerium. Things you don't hear about much unless you're in tech manufacturing or advanced weapon systems. This wasn't some expedition of amateurs either. Prospecta flew in a team of 17, including geologists, engineers, safety specialists, and a few of us seasoned drillers. We were supposed to be there for a 6-month exploratory dig. Temporary base, portable labs, short rotations, nothing unusual. The setup went smooth enough. The first few weeks were almost peaceful. No distractions, no phones buzzing. Just the mountain air, the rhythmic sound of drills, the occasional avalanche rumble echoing in the distance, like some beast clearing its throat. The locals were friendly, if a bit wary. I don't blame them. We were loud, strange, and poking holes in the side of a sacred mountain. The weird thing is, the mountain didn't have a name. When we asked around, the villagers just shrugged. One old woman spat over her shoulder and said something like, "That place sleeps, let it." Our translator softened it into something more palatable. Of course, some poetic warning about letting stones keep their dreams. We thought it was superstition, just another local legend trying to scare off foreigners from what they believed to be Holy Land. I wish we'd listened. By week 4, we'd already sunk 3 exploratory shafts, each one going about 100 meters deep. The rock was strange, unnaturally dense and riddled with crystalline structures that weren't in the original core samples. Some of the geologists got excited, others, not so much. One guy, Sergio, said the formations didn't match anything in the database. He thought they might be fossilized, but of what? He couldn't say. Looked almost like coral, he joked. Like the ocean was once up here. Then at 109 meters down, in Shaft B, we hit something we weren't supposed to. It wasn't metal or ore. It was flat, smooth, like carved stone. The kind that doesn't belong 2 miles from the nearest road, let alone over 100 meters underground in untouched geological strata. At first, they thought it was an ancient wall, a ruin maybe. But we weren't near any known Incan sites, and the stone didn't match the materials used by native civilizations. It looked older, too precise. There were lines etched into it, symbols, geometric patterns that made the back of my neck prickle just staring at them. We radioed it in, and the supervisors halted all activity at Shaft B. That didn't surprise me. Any potential archaeological discovery had to be reported. There's protocol for that kind of thing. What did surprise me was how fast things changed after that. Within 24 hours, Prospecta flew in 3 men who didn't work for the company. No hard hats, no names. They didn't introduce themselves. They just walked into our camp like they'd been expected and went straight to the shaft. They took over operations without explanation. The site was suddenly classified, and half the crew was reassigned to less promising areas of the ridge. I should have walked then. I really should have. But I didn't. Curiosity, or maybe pride, kept me there. I told myself it was about the pay, the job, the challenge. But deep down, I just wanted to know what we'd found, what we'd woken up. The real digging didn't start until 2 days later. They brought in a new drill, something I'd never seen before. Sleek, compact, quiet. One of the mystery men called it a precision lattice oscillator. It hummed more than it drilled, and it cut through that impossibly hard stone like it was warm butter. The weirdest part? The deeper we went, the easier the digging got. It was like the rock was inviting us in. On day 32, the shaft opened into a void. Not a pocket or a cavern, a tunnel, perfectly round, about 4 meters high, and lined with those same etched patterns stretching as far as our lights could see. No natural cave does that. No ancient ruin should be that deep. And yet, there it was, waiting. That night, we all gathered in the common tent. The old schoolers like me sat quiet, staring at our cups of coffee like they might hold answers. The younger guys whispered theories. Some joked about lost civilizations and alien bunkers. But no one was really laughing. I couldn't sleep. The mountain was too quiet. It was the kind of silence that presses on you, that listens. And deep below our boots, that impossible tunnel waited in the dark, untouched by time, unseen by the sun, and not empty. Not even close. We weren't supposed to enter the tunnel. That was made abundantly clear. The men in black, who we'd started calling the suits, ordered the entrance sealed and posted around-the-clock guard. They called in drones, LiDAR scanners, and motion-sensing equipment. Said it was for structural analysis. Said it wasn't safe. But it didn't feel like safety they were worried about. It felt like containment. They ran scans for days, poring over results and private briefings. We got no updates, no explanations. Just more instructions and a heavy silence. A couple of the younger guys didn't take kindly to being shut out. One even tried to sneak past the perimeter one night. They shipped him back to Lima the next morning. No goodbye, no notice. His tent was empty before breakfast. Still, we waited. We drilled elsewhere. Hauled equipment. Pretended everything was normal. But it wasn't. 2 nights after the discovery, I had a dream. I was walking through the tunnel, only it was lit by an unnatural glow, like the walls themselves were breathing pale light. The symbols pulsed as I passed. I could feel them vibrate beneath my boots, echoing into my bones. Somewhere far ahead, I heard whispering, not in words I recognized. But somehow, I understood. It was calling me forward, calling all of us. When I woke, I was covered in sweat. I wasn't the only one. Half the camp had nightmares that night. One guy, a stoic old hand named Elias, left his cot and sat outside until morning, wrapped in a blanket, muttering that it's watching us. When asked what it was, he wouldn't say. The next day, something changed. They opened the tunnel. No fanfare, no announcement. Just quiet movement at dawn as the suits and a handful of selected engineers went down, with lights, scanners, and those sleek little rolling drones. We weren't invited. But we watched. They were gone for over 4 hours. When they came back, they looked pale. The suits were whispering to each other fast, eyes twitching at the shadows. None of them had soil samples. No core readings. No footage from the drones was shared. whatever they found down there, they weren't eager to talk about it. I tried asking Dr. Anaya, our lead geologist. We'd worked together before, and she was sharp, grounded, logical to a fault. But when I caught her alone and asked what she'd seen, she just said, "It's not possible," and went back to her tent. She started drinking heavily after that. 2 more days passed. Then they called for volunteers, said the passage might extend deeper, and that they needed experienced miners for structural support. I didn't hesitate. They picked 6 of us: me, Pavel, Jamal, Eric, Mendoza, and a kid named Lucas, who shouldn't have even been there. I think he lied about his experience just to make the cut. We geared up with reinforced suits, breathing rigs, and climbing harnesses. They gave us modified headlamps, infrared enhanced with spectrum filters I didn't recognize. And before we went in, one of the suits pulled me aside and said something I'll never forget. "If you see anything you can't describe, don't try. Just mark it and move on." I thought it was a joke, or maybe a weird psychological test. But his face didn't move. He was dead serious. We entered the tunnel just after dawn on day 38. Inside, the temperature dropped fast. Not the kind of cold you expect in deep rock, but an unnatural chill that seemed to swallow sound. Every step felt muffled. Our boots echoed back just a fraction slower than they should have. I kept tapping my helmet radio, thinking it was glitching, but it was the air. It was thick somehow. The tunnel walls were smooth to the touch, too smooth. No chisel marks, no signs of erosion or heat scoring, just perfect, featureless curves interrupted by geometric inlays, triangles, spirals, intersecting arcs, and something like circuitry or veins. It looked like it had been machined, only we were hundreds of feet below untouched rock, inside something older than history. We followed the main tunnel for about 400 meters before reaching the first chamber. It was vast, perfectly spherical, like the inside of a planetarium. The walls glowed faintly, and at the center stood a monolith, 8 meters tall, matte black, and humming just above human hearing. I say stood, but it didn't touch the floor. It floated about half a meter above it, turning slowly. I don't know how long we stood there. No one spoke. Even Pavel, who never shut up, was silent. I remember thinking, this doesn't belong in rock. This doesn't belong on Earth. Lucas reached for the monolith. Mendoza grabbed his wrist before he could touch it, yanking him back so hard he fell over. Good thing, too. A second later, a pulse rolled through the air. Not loud, but dense, like pressure collapsing inward. Our lights flickered. The HUDs on our visors rebooted. My vision doubled for a moment, and I swear I saw others standing with us. Figures just slightly out of sync with our reality. Tall, thin, watching. Then it was gone. Pavel vomited in his helmet. Eric sat down and refused to move. We marked the location, left a signal beacon, and got the hell out. Back at base, they debriefed us separately, took our suits, scrubbed our footage. One of the suits told me, in a voice like gravel, "You saw nothing anomalous. You experienced mild decompression-related hallucinations. That is all." I didn't argue. I just nodded. Because deep down, I think we all knew. We hadn't discovered anything. We'd entered something. Something ancient. Something alive. After the incident with the monolith, none of us were quite the same. Mendoza became jumpy, waking up screaming some nights. He refused to go near the tunnel again, saying the air in there was thick with memory. Jamal started keeping a journal full of strange symbols. He didn't remember writing them, but the symbols matched the ones we saw etched into the walls. And Lucas? He stared off into space more and more, muttering numbers under his breath. Long, impossible sequences that never repeated. They sent Eric home. Official reason was acute vertigo and psychological fatigue. Unofficially, he'd stopped responding to basic questions and was caught one night whispering to the wall of his tent, answering someone only he could hear. But still, the suits pushed forward. They sent in more drones, more scanning equipment. None of it came back intact. One drone went dark 30 meters past the monolith. When they recovered it, the chassis had been partially melted, as if by intense heat. But the surrounding rock showed no signs of high temperatures. Another came back with corrupted data, except for a few seconds of footage that made the tech reviewing it scream and faint. We weren't shown that footage, but I saw the still frame they printed and immediately shredded. It showed eyes, hundreds of them, embedded in the rock, open and watching. That's when they started talking about sending a full descent team, engineers, geologists, archaeologists, and miners for support. They were calling it Phase 2 now. They asked us to draw maps, document anything recognizably artificial, and avoid touching anything. I wasn't sure I wanted to go again, but I needed answers. They gave us more advanced suits for the second expedition, heavier shielding, internal cooling, seismic dampeners. I recognized some of the tech from experimental prototypes I'd seen while consulting for deep-core mining firms in Nevada. Stuff that wasn't supposed to be field-ready. The suits also came with a new addition: biometric monitors that tracked brainwave patterns in real time. One of the suits said it was for predicting neurological stress events. Another one, less careful with his words, muttered, "It's the only way to know who's being touched." We descended again on day 44. This time, we went deeper. Past the monolith, the tunnel changed. It widened and narrowed in ways that didn't make sense. The geometry was wrong. Some turns seemed to fold in on themselves. Lucas dropped a flare ahead of us once, and we saw it fall behind us. We stopped using flares after that. At roughly 900 meters, we found the entrance. A massive arch carved into the rock, maybe 20 meters high. The design was alien. Fractals upon fractals, curves within angles, like Escher had a fever dream and built a doorway from it. The air beyond shimmered, like heat haze, but it was freezing. When we stepped through, our suit sensors glitched again. For 3 full minutes, every altimeter and compass read 0. And then we were inside. A city. I swear to God, it was a city. Not ruins, not crumbled walls or buried statues. A city, intact. Built into a subterranean cavern, so large it might as well have been a sky. Towers stretched into the darkness above. Bridges connected impossibly thin spires. Light, not sunlight, not electrical, glowed faintly from veins in the stone, illuminating roads, terraces, and wide courtyards paved with that same black, pulsing material we saw in the monolith. There was no dust, no decay, like it had been waiting. Pavel whispered, "This isn't abandoned." He was right. The buildings had no windows, only smooth facades with geometric carvings. We approached the nearest one. Mendoza tapped it gently with a probe, and the wall responded. It breathed. Just once. A subtle ripple that spread out and returned to stillness. It wasn't stone. It wasn't metal either. It was organic. Alive in some way our instruments couldn't define. The probe dissolved slowly where it touched the wall, like it had been digested. Pavel backed away. So did I. Lucas stepped forward and pressed his hand against the wall. It opened. Not like a door, not even like a membrane. More like reality folded back. And suddenly there was a hallway where there hadn't been one before. A perfectly smooth corridor, lit with soft, pulsing veins and lined with strange geometric statues, almost humanoid, but with elongated limbs and no faces. Against our better judgment, we entered. The corridor led downward at a gentle slope. After a few minutes, our radios picked up interference. We heard whispers again, distant, echoing ones. I kept looking back, convinced someone was walking just behind us, but there was never anyone there. Lucas whispered, "They're dreaming." I asked who. He didn't answer. Eventually, we reached a large chamber, filled with hexagonal pillars that rose and fell like a frozen ocean. In the center was a dais, and something atop it. A structure, almost like a sarcophagus, but covered in moving script. The letters weren't carved. They were alive, crawling like insects, rearranging themselves into new languages. One phrase appeared long enough for all of us to read it. Not dead, only sealed. We should have left right then. But something opened above the dais. A crack in the ceiling, like an eye blinking open, and a beam of that impossible light poured down onto the sarcophagus. The walls began to tremble. The pillars vibrated. And for the first time, I felt something stir beneath us. Alive. Hungry. We ran. The corridor didn't look the same going back. We took turns we didn't recognize, past statues that now had faces, horrible, leering faces that seemed to scream silently as we passed. My visor started flickering. Jamal collapsed twice, clutching his head. When we finally emerged into the cavern again, the city was different. Lights off, structures darkened. But something watched us from every tower, every windowless wall, every unseen place. I couldn't prove it, but I knew. We all did. The city was awake now, and it knew we'd seen too much. We didn't talk much on the way back up. There was a heaviness in the silence, like a presence had followed us out and clung to our suits, breathing in the narrow space between our skin and the inner lining. Our return to the surface wasn't met with the usual debrief or handshakes, just pale faces, hushed voices, and more security than I'd ever seen on a dig site. Men in unmarked uniforms took our gear the moment we stepped out of the lift shaft. They didn't say anything. They didn't have to. We were quarantined in separate portable units. Every hour, someone in a clean suit came in and asked us the same questions. What did you see? Did you touch anything? Did you bring anything back? They scanned our brains, took blood samples, ran psychological assessments, then started over like they didn't trust their own data. I tried to play it cool, to lie by omission. Didn't matter. They already knew. The footage from our suits was corrupted. Again. But this time, it wasn't just glitches. Whole sequences had been overwritten by symbols. The same symbols we saw etched in the city. They weren't stored on any memory card. The data just appeared, like the suits themselves were infected. Lucas never left his unit. Not once. They say he started writing on the walls with his fingernails, covering every inch of space with that writhing script. When they sedated him and hosed the place down, the marks came back the next day, just like before. By day 50, the company halted operations. Not publicly, they just phased people out. Only the core team stayed. Me, Mendoza, Pavel, and 2 newcomers we didn't recognize. Military for sure. They didn't bother with fake names. One of them, a woman with eyes like cold steel, told us we were being transferred to Site B, the research annex. It was a bunker built hastily into the mountainside, just outside the main shaft. When I asked why the change, she said, "Containment protocol. You've been exposed." To what? She didn't answer. Inside the annex, we found something worse than silence. They'd set up a lab. Monitors, tanks, specimen trays. In the center, on a surgical table, was something they had extracted from beneath the city. It was alive. A cube, about the size of a shoebox. But it didn't stay a cube. It shifted constantly, like it couldn't decide what shape it wanted to be. Black, but reflective. Its surface shimmered with that same not light from the city veins. Whenever someone got too close, the cube reached. Not physically, but with intent. A psychic intrusion. I felt it, like a whisper threading into the folds of your mind. No words, just presence, watching, tasting. They called it the seed. According to the lab notes, which I wasn't supposed to read, it emitted a low-frequency hum, just outside human hearing. But the hum changed depending on who was near it, or responded to emotions, especially fear. One scientist had a breakdown just standing near it for 10 minutes. He said it was showing him the original version of reality. They sedated him and sent him to a facility in Chile. Nobody ever said which one. That's when I knew this wasn't just some lost civilization. It wasn't even human. Pavel, ever the pragmatist, tried to keep busy. He cataloged the symbols, matching them to ancient proto-languages and mythological glyphs. He found overlaps in Sumerian, Minoan, even pre-Incan petroglyphs. But there were always inconsistencies, gaps that made no linguistic sense. Except one. He showed me a sequence he'd decoded. It said, "We were here before the first light." Another said, "What sleeps must not wake." We were in deep, and we knew it. But we weren't the only ones getting spooked. One of the new guards, Hendricks, I think, shot himself outside the annex 2 days later. He left a note. It just said, "The dreams aren't mine anymore." By day 55, Mendoza was gone too. Not dead, just gone. He walked into the shaft alone in the middle of the night. No suit, no gear. We saw him on the cameras. Just walked straight in, eyes closed, like he was sleepwalking toward something calling him home. They found his suit later, just the suit. It was turned inside out, folded neatly at the edge of the abyss. We weren't allowed back into the city after that, not officially. But on day 59, Pavel came to me with a plan. "There's something deeper," he said. "The city isn't the bottom, it's the lid." He showed me readings, vibrations coming from beneath the lowest chamber we'd reached. Rhythmic, not tectonic, like breathing. We argued. I told him he was chasing ghosts. But that night, I heard it too. From my bunk. A voice. Distant and deep, vibrating in my chest. Not in English, not in any language spoken by man. But I understood it. Just one word. Soon. By day 60, I'd stopped pretending to sleep. The walls of the annex seemed to breathe now, expanding and contracting just beneath the surface of the concrete. The humming from the seed grew louder, not with decibels, but with pressure, like it was pushing into our skulls, behind our eyes, into our thoughts. Some of the researchers started drawing the glyphs in their sleep. Others went mute, staring at screens that weren't turned on. Then the animals started dying. They'd brought down rats and insects for exposure testing. One by one, they stopped eating, stopped moving, and then just stopped being. No decomposition, no rot, just perfectly preserved corpses that weighed less than they should, like something had evacuated them of substance. Pavel stopped shaving. He started wearing gloves, even when there was no need. He said the seed could read fingerprints. "It's mapping us," he whispered one morning, eyes wild. "Learning our choices, replicating our patterns." He was going to go back in. Not with a team, alone. I tried to stop him, but by then he didn't listen to anyone. So, on day 63, at 2:14 a.m., Pavel suited up, bypassed the guards using a code he wasn't supposed to know, and lowered himself into the shaft. The last thing he said to me was, "I don't think we found it. I think it let us find it." That was the last time I saw him. His feed stayed on for 4 hours, long enough for us to see him reach a new level beneath the city, a place that wasn't mapped. It wasn't made of stone or metal. It was organic. The walls pulsed, wet and black, veined with the same glowing fluid as the city above. It looked like the inside of a living thing, a womb. And at the center of it all, Pavel found a door. It wasn't attached to anything. Just a freestanding arch made of some material we couldn't identify. It shimmered, not like heat mirage, but like memory, like looking through the surface of a dream. He reached for it. The moment his fingers made contact, the feed cut to static. Not noise, static, like something deliberate had severed the connection. We never heard from him again. The company scrubbed the footage within an hour. Every file, every backup, even the raw signals from the tether. They told us Pavel had gone rogue, that he was under psychological distress, that he destroyed his own gear. But I knew better. So did the others. The military presence increased overnight. Trucks came in by the dozen. We saw crates being hauled down into the shaft, crates shaped like containment pods. There was no doubt now. They were planning to extract whatever was down there. That's when I decided to leave. Not officially. I knew they'd never let me walk out. But I still had my old ID badge, and with the right uniform, I could blend in. I'd been planning my exit for days. Had a bag stashed with supplies, fake credentials, even a signal scrambler to disable the perimeter drones. But before I could leave, it came to me. Not physically. In my mind. It was like a dream at first. I was standing in the chamber with the door. Pavel was there, staring into it. But when I tried to speak, he turned, and it wasn't him anymore. His face was wrong, not monstrous, just incorrect, like a child's drawing of a human face. And then the dream cracked open. I wasn't in the city anymore. I was somewhere else, floating, above a black sphere the size of a planet. It pulsed with thought, not light, thought. I felt things in that moment I can't describe. Time was different, identity blurred. I could feel every mind that had ever touched the seed. I could hear their screams, their prayers, their wonder. And I knew this wasn't just an artifact. It was a probe. A seed in the truest sense, sent here to grow, to map, to terraform the human mind. And it was almost done. When I woke up, I'd clawed my fingernails bloody against the metal walls of my bunk. My lips were torn. I had been whispering the glyphs aloud in my sleep. That was the final straw. I had to get out, not just from the site, from everything. I stole a transport the next night during a supply run, ditched the tracker, disabled the drone link, and drove 48 straight hours through the desert until the stars finally stopped whispering. But I don't think I escaped. Not really. I still dream of the black sphere. And sometimes, just before waking, I hear Pavel's voice whispering from behind that impossible door. We are only the first. It's been 2 years. 2 years since I walked away from the mining site. 2 years since Pavel vanished into a place that shouldn't exist. Since I saw that doorway and that thing behind it. I live alone now, off-grid. I burned every ID I had, wiped every trace, changed my name 3 times. Cash only. No cell phones, no internet, no friends. My cabin's buried in a valley so deep, even satellites miss it. And still, I don't feel safe. Because I know what's coming. I hear it in the static when I turn on the radio. I see it in the glitches when the TV flickers through channels I didn't tune. I feel it in my dreams. It's getting closer. And I'm not the only one. Last fall, a geologist in Chile emailed me using a dead inbox I'd forgotten I ever made. No message, just an image attachment. A photo of an obsidian monolith half buried in an open-pit lithium mine. The markings on it were identical to the ones beneath our city. I deleted the email, smashed the laptop. But the damage was done. I started researching again. Quietly, carefully, using burner libraries and old analog archives. The pattern is global. Underground ruins turning up in Siberia, Ethiopia, northern Canada, all buried beneath layers of time and tectonic violence, not cities, not structures. Pods. Seed vaults. And every single one is built in the same configuration. Same glyphs, same architecture, same black stone that doesn't register on any mineralogical spectrum. And all of them pulse. Just like ours did. I spoke to a physicist who used to work for a private aerospace firm. He didn't say much, but what he did say chilled me. We think they're tuning forks, he whispered, waiting for something to strike the right frequency. Whatever left those things behind didn't want to be noticed right away. They wanted to take root, to study us, adapt, colonize. Not with ships or armies, but with ideas, with resonance, with influence so subtle it looks like coincidence. Technology leaps, genetic drift, thought patterns that emerge out of nowhere in different cultures at once. And maybe the cities we've found, maybe they were left behind for a reason, like shells or grave markers. Pavel thought we were the first, that the seed was dormant till we arrived. But I've come to believe something worse. I think it was already awake, and we were just the next in a long line of species that got too curious. Now it's moving faster. I've seen reports of shared hallucinations in urban areas, entire blocks experiencing time slips, blackouts, people waking up speaking languages they never learned. Governments denying it, but the footage leaks. People talking in their sleep, drawing the glyphs, digging. Like they know where to go. Like they're being called. I've started hearing again too. A hum, always just beneath the sound of silence. Sometimes I wake up with sand under my nails, my boots muddy, the back door wide open and footprints leading into the woods. Once I woke up clutching a piece of black rock. It was warm and humming. I buried it somewhere deep. I don't even remember where. But it's part of me now. I know that. I feel that. So I'm doing the only thing I can do. I'm telling you. Because there's more of them out there. More cities, more doors. More minds being rewritten, one dream at a time. And someday soon, something's going to open that door again. And when it does, it won't just be another Pavel who walks through. It'll be something wearing our shape, smiling our smile, speaking with our voice. And you won't know it's not human until it's far too late. Because that's the thing about cities. They're not just places we build. Sometimes they build us.